So Clair Expedition 33 has smashed player expected concurrent numbers on Steam. Granted, this isn't even considering console players or Game Pass players, of which there are many. They've set a record, this was 2 hours ago, of 71,000 concurrent players on Steam just on day 2. I think it's actually higher now. Let me check. No, it's down to 57. Okay, so 24-hour peak, 71,225. 71,225. And this is still a weekday, my friends. It's only going to go up on the weekend. Tell you what, and that's crazy because, again, this is a game made by 30 people. 30 people. Bear in mind, also, this is 30 people, most of whom used to work at Ubisoft. Let that sizzle in, okay? Let that simmer for a second. It's why I've been so insistent that, like, even at studios, or maybe rather I should say publishers that you find detestable, you should never just blindly say, oh, the devs suck, or oh, the developers don't know what they're doing, or oh, this or that about the devs. In my experience, the developers on all sorts of games, even games like, Just Dance or something, are very capable and they know what they want to do and what gamers really are hoping for. 90% of the time. The problem with these games from big publishers, EA, Take-Two, Ubisoft, whatever, it comes from the executives getting their grubby mitts involved. That's where the problems come from. Because you see what happens when those devs that previously, the game director, the studio director, the guy that is responsible for Expedition 33, the big head honcho guy at Sandfall Interactive. You know the last game he worked on? Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Yeah. And then he makes this. It's about ideas. It's about talent. It's about letting them do what they want to do. And then you see what they're able to deliver. It's wild. It's wild. But you have to let the devs do what they know how to do and to do what they think needs to be done and what they believe in. And you see the results. I mean, they've already sold over 500,000 copies. This is sold copies, okay? At probably that $45 price point, with some deluxe editions mixed in to probably increase that point, or $45 price point with some premiums. But this 500 copies sold, not counting what is included on Game Pass, which is also probably significant because, again, remember, most deals on Game Pass pay out a flat fee up front and they pay out a fee based on hours played because Game Pass is all about keeping players engaged. So if somebody is playing Clair Obscur Expedition 33 for 50, 60, 70 hours, or they do New Game Plus and they go for another 60 and they finish with 100 hours, that right there is a good chunk of change. We don't know exactly what. They keep that secret. They don't tell the public. But either way, they're making bank on this. They're doing well, as they should. It is currently the top rated game of 2025. It was beat out by Blueprints for about 18 hours, but as more reviews were published, it actually broke in the decimal points. They're both still at 92 out of 100 on Metacritic, but it actually broke past on the decimal range, Blueprints, and it is now the highest rated game of 2025. And again, it was made by 30 people. 30 people. They might be like, Luke, what does that matter? I mean, it's 30 people's 30 people, and it's a game with a tighter scope. Exactly, okay? This is a game that has been produced with a small team, a passionate team, over the course of roughly 5 years. It started about 5 years ago during COVID, and then they started adding in more people that they knew from other studios and Ubisoft and from previous jobs they had worked, and they just slowly built it out into what it is now. But this is a perfect example of how I think the AAA mindset in that corporate C-suite has corrupted the industry, okay? For about a decade, maybe even more, maybe 2 decades, executives always just assumed if we put more devs on and we put more money into a project, it will therefore be better. And that is, in my opinion, not true. I was going to say that in my opinion, it's objectively not true, which doesn't make any sense, which is why I caught myself. But in my opinion, it doesn't actually lead to that result. Yeah, it makes the game bigger. Yeah, it makes the scope of the game increase. Yes, it might allow you to put it on more platforms. It might allow you to put more DLC into it day one. But it doesn't make a better game. The quality is determined by the ideas. Blueprints, also an indie game. It's the number 2 rated game of 2025. Clair Obscur Expedition 33, technically an indie game. Very, very tight, limited budget. Very tight. The third place game in this list on Metacritic, which Metacritic isn't everything, but it's usually a good idea of like roughly what the consensus is in terms of quality. The third game is Split Fiction, which is also a very pro-consumer game. It offers a friend pass where you only need to buy one copy, and then your friends can play it even if they don't buy a copy. They can play through the whole game with you in split-screen co-op, or even in remote online co-op with each other. You only have to buy one copy. And that's from EA. EA with a pro-consumer offering that players connected with and loved, and it also was a great game that was just creative and wacky without all this live service bullcrap, you know? And the fourth place game, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which I also love dearly. It's fantastic. Also, just a really solid game that was made with a fairly tight budget. Does anybody remember the exact number, what they said the budget was on KCD2? It wasn't very high. It was like shockingly low. And they turned a profit on day one, which honestly, Clair Obscur probably also turned a profit day one. It was like 40 million or something. Yeah, it was like between 40 and 50 million US dollars. Yeah, 47 or something. Yeah, it was way less than you would have thought, but it's because it was properly scoped and they knew what they were making and they didn't waste time doing all this. But this is why it's just about ideas. Like, it really is about the ideas and the passion of the team. We've been talking about Marathon, for example, a lot the last week or so since they did the full reveal of it. And the most shocking thing about that game is that it's been in development for 5 to 6 years. They've spent tons of money. Who knows how much money they've spent developing that game. But it was fully rebooted when Joe Ziegler joined the team. And we looked it up on stream on, I think, Wednesday. Joe Ziegler only joined at Bungie 2.5 years ago. It was like 2 years, 5 months ago. And they rebooted the whole game. Before he joined, it was not a hero-based extraction shooter. It was just an extraction shooter based totally on gear. Like, they rebooted the entire thing since he joined after leaving Valorant, which he previously game directed. So, but that's how like a lot of these corporations and more corporate development cycles work, is that they just spend 5, 6, 7 years on something and just throw everything at the wall, waste tons of time, tons of resources, tons of money on ideas. And then they try to settle on something in the last minute. You know, I think it's just, you can't buy creativity. You can't buy a good idea. You either have it or you don't. And I think what Expedition 33 represents is a phenomenal realization of that concept, which is just simply that if you have a good idea and a passionate team of capable devs, you can make a masterpiece that people love and people are willing to support. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. It doesn't take 2,000 devs working on something for 3 years, trying to throw something together that you think people will like because you had a focus group come in and they said that they liked it. You know, when you start developing games like that, you end up with, you know, modern AAA slop where you have NPCs explaining how to solve puzzles before you even see that there's a puzzle. You know, yellow paint everywhere because we did a focus test and we invited Darkside Phil in and he couldn't figure out where to go. So we just put giant glowing arrows pointing everywhere you're supposed to go. Don't do that. Okay. I think games like Elden Ring, Clair Obscur, Blueprints, these are all phenomenal games that don't hold your hand at all. And players love it. But I think if you were to take these games into like focus group testing, a lot of people would be like, well, I honestly struggled with the turn-based. Can we turn the parrying off in Expedition 33? The parrying is tough. I don't like that. If they listened to that kind of feedback, the game would be, like, in my opinion, it would be worse. You get rid of the parries in Expedition 33, you're removing an incredible mechanic out of that game that's so intuitive and makes so much sense to include in a turn-based game like this. But again, it's I think what happens when you have so much money on the line that just having your idea and standing against the focus groups and being like, no, we're not going to change it. We're doing it this way. That's seen as such an unreasonable risk that these executives can't stand it. So instead, they put all their games through waves of focus testing. And they just push and push and push and wait until they get the all clear from the most generic group of players you've ever seen. And the game comes out and people are like, yep, it feels generic. It feels kind of uninspired, because it literally is. Any inspiration that was there was cut because Timmy Two Shoes struggled with the parry system. because Philip couldn't figure out where to go. So you had to put paint everywhere. But if you have a good idea, and you stand by it, your game can explode and be phenomenal. It can be great. People will eat it up. But this is, again, going back to what I said before. I think this is why the AAA mindset has kind of corrupted the industry, because it's raised the budgets to the point where risks are anathema. Risks cannot be taken. It's unreasonable. It's irrational. We cannot do that. So instead, we just do whatever is safest, or whatever we think is safest, which leads to some funny conclusions like Saints Row reboot, where they honestly thought that that was like kind of a safe bet. Like, oh, well, we have to play it safe. So let's make a bunch of characters in the story that we think are relatable to gamers. That'll be safe. Turns out they just happen to make a cast of the most obnoxious, annoying people on the planet. But that's what happens when you're out of touch, you know. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise. But this is why I've also said that people have asked after the collapse of games like Concord, for example, they're like, is the games industry crashing? Is it happening already? And personally, I think it's already started like 6 months ago, a year ago, but it's not in the way you think. Like, the game crash is specifically third-party AAA games. I think like Square Enix has struggled with it. Obviously, Embracer Group and their studios have struggled with it. Throwing $100 million, $200 million into a project just isn't viable anymore, because the people that are choosing where to throw the money have no idea what gamers actually want. So those games are going to like dry up because they're not worth the risk. But what will continue, and already is excelling, but what will continue to excel, are these AA games, you know, that maybe were produced with a 30 million budget, maybe 20, maybe 40 or 50 million. But, you know, it's a lot of money. But when you consider the risk reward ratio, it's a lot safer to make a $40 million game compared to making a $200 million game. It's a lot safer of a bet, especially if you made an Expedition 33 and you know players love that, and then you give this team 100 million and another 4 or 5 years to make their next thing. Then they'll be fine. Yeah, that's a safe bet. That makes sense. The guy, you know, the Blueprints team. Yeah, no, give them 50 million. Let them go for a few years. That makes sense. Yeah, do that. KCD2, yeah, that popped off. They only spent 47 million last year. Okay, well, let's give them 80. Let's see what they can do. Still an amazingly safe bet, because you know that they know what they're doing. So long as you keep your mitts off of them, you know. That's the key. But the success of Expedition 33, I think, is really good for the industry. Not just that it's reviewed well, which I think is also important, because it wakes up executives. Because here's the thing that maybe it's easy to forget. Executives love shiny things, okay? They love them. They love putting the trophy on the shelf behind them, so when they have somebody come into their office, they get to point at it. They love shiny stuff. They love it. There was that story.
Hey Luke, this is Terry Two Shoes and Philip's mom. I mean they are really hurt that you called them generic. Yellow is their favorite color, and my fault that I dropped them on their head and they don't know where to go.
I mean, I appreciate you acknowledging that it was your fault that you dropped them. Jesus Christ. Oh, you're gonna kill me. Anyway, thank you, Caleb. That's very generous. I'm sorry, not Caleb. Terry Two Shoes and Philip's mom. Thank you for that. Very generous. But what I was saying was, executives love shiny stuff, and executives hate being hated. You know, they cannot stand it. There were stories that came out back in like the 2014, 15, 16, 17 era. You remember back when EA won Worst Company in America award twice in a row? It was amazing. They literally blew it so bad, like 2 years in a row, that they lost to like horrifying companies like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, like companies that actively screwed millions of people, stole money from, like, horrible stuff. And you know, they just happened to beat them out because they had a lot of microtransactions. But there were stories and reporting that EA executives were horribly embarrassed. They were livid. They're like, we've got to fix this. We can't stand this. And EA, honestly, I mean, they worked on it. They made progress. Again, EA published Game of the Year 2021. And they published Split Fiction, same team. That's crazy.
Clap C donated $10 through Super Chat.
Thank you.
Expedition 33 is the first game that has made me feel guilty for playing it through Game Pass.
Isn't that remarkable? Isn't that crazy? But I will say, people are like, don't play through Game Pass, buy it for cash. We don't know the terms of the agreement. We don't know if they make, I would guess they make more if you just buy it straight, but I don't know that for sure. I mean, maybe, because again, it's usually tied to hours played. If you play 80 hours on Game Pass, they might make more of a profit than what they make in profit off Steam. I don't know. Because again, it's based on hours played. So if you're going to play it on Game Pass, just make sure to play a lot of it. That's the trick. Okay. That's the key. That's the hack. Let's see. What was I saying? Oh, but yeah, executives, they don't like being hated. They like showing up to the conferences and being praised and getting asked for pictures. They like feeling like a rock star, They don't like showing up and everybody booing them when they come out on stage. Like, what's the guy that runs the NFL? Is it Goodell, something like that? I saw a clip of him at like the draft, and the moment he walks on stage, boo! Like everybody starts booing him instantly. The whole crowd. Like, there is not a single person applauding for this man that runs the entire industry that they celebrate and enjoy. Not a single person, I don't think he likes that, It's kind of a running joke, yeah, at this point. Like, he leans into it and they joke about it. But, like, nobody wants to come out on stage at E3 and get booed, And I think if you saw, like, Jim Ryan come out on stage at E3, he probably could get some boos because of his reputation. Nobody really likes that, okay? Executives like being praised. They like having the trophies. And I've been to some of these game studios as well. I was just at Bungie. You know what they have in their lobby? All the awards that they've won in big glass cases. It's like one of the first things you see when you walk in. You do like the security check-in. They put you through the metal detectors and everything. And then boom, right there's a bunch of trophies that they've won as a studio. Haven't won many recently, but they're there, They're right there. And so never underestimate the power of a good Metacritic score for executives. That goes a long way, and it has for a while. You remember the story about Fallout New Vegas? Fallout New Vegas was thrown together in about 18 months. Remarkable achievement. It's broken as hell even now, but still, it's remarkable that game even exists with how little time they had to do it. But one of the deals that Bethesda gave them was that they would get paid out a bonus if the Metacritic were above 85. So they put a monetary incentive on getting a higher Metacritic score because they cared that much. They only got an 84, so they didn't get their bonus. Oops. I will say, some people give Bethesda a lot of crap for that because they're like, isn't that crazy? They screwed them out of their bonuses. I'm like, I don't see it that way. Like, they said, you get this Metacritic score, you get the bonus. You don't get it, you don't get the bonus. It's not 84 plus or minus 2, because then it's just 83. Like, it's 85. I've never understood that people get freaked out or super annoyed by that. Like, I think it was a stretch to begin with. The fact they got to 84 is crazy cool, because they didn't have much time. If anything, you should give them crap for how much or how little time they were given to make that game. But over the Metacritic thing, I've always found that to be a weird and kind of stupid reason to be upset about it. But anyway, all of this to say, I think Expedition 33's success is a very good thing for the industry. I'm so glad to see that people are eating it up and are enjoying it. I encourage everybody to go play it if you have not already. It's very, very good, and you will be thankful that you did. Okay? Please, for the love of God, go play it. He took my thing.